For latest updates and short audio clips, follow us on Instagram, Reading the Author.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Today we have Kochery C Shibu sir with us, the author of Faith and the Beloved. Today's episode is a recorded interview which was already aired a month ago, and with the full consent of the author, we are uploading it here in a podcast format. For more details, check the description.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the online launch of Faith and the Beloved by Kochery C Shibu. And on behalf of the Readers and Writers Club, I would warmly like to welcome the author and Miss Oindrila Dutt and Miss Anjum Khetyal. They need no introduction, but just a little formality to briefly let you know about them. As I just mentioned, we are very pleased to have Oindrila Dutt with us, founder of Open Doors. She's a renowned arts and events curator and presenter, and has worked with luminaries, artists, actors, writers across India and overseas. She's also a freelance writer and a columnist for leading dailies and publications. Thank you, Oindrila, for giving us time and being on the session. Anjum Khetyal, thank you so much for being with us. Very warm welcome to you. Anjum is a writer, editor, and translator of great repute. She is the author and translator of several books on theatre and performance. She also writes poetry and sings the blues. We're delighted, Shibu, to have you with us. You will be in conversation shortly with Oindrila and Anjum. Shibu is the best-selling and award-winning author. He graduated from the National Defence Academy and has served in the Indian Navy. He lives in Bangalore with his wife and daughter. So thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoys this session, and over to you, Oindrila.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mona. First, let me hold up the book. This is the book we're talking about, Faith and the Beloved. So, Shibu, let's start. This is a really vast canvas that you have in this book, Faith and the Beloved. You've touched upon mining, hydroelectric projects, advertising, the Navy Nagar in Mumbai, the ugly underbelly of the underworld and the porn industry, drugs, and much more. How much of this was inspired by your own experiences? Because you have said that most of the characters are based on people you actually met.
Just to, yes, the book does cover a very large canvas. Yes, a large number of those characters and the book has been inspired from the events which have taken place and have been, let's say, seen by me and by the rest of the country in many ways. There is no direct link between any of the characters in the book to a character in real life to say that it's directly representing one or the other. To give an example, that when I started this book, when the Sri Lankan strife started and the Tamils and the Sri Lankan civil war started in the 80s, there was an incident of an actual true incident of a mob burning a car where a Tamil family was burnt to death in their car, and they had kept the children out, 2 girls, and the father from the burning car came out, took his children and went back and preferred that they die with him in the car.
Yes.
So this incident had kind of stuck with me for a number of years to see that how that parent preferred that that the child dies with him or their parents than being left to the mob.
Yeah.
And of course, that one character is built from there. Of course, that boy is not there in the real incident.
Tony. Yeah, Tony. Yeah.
So in the similar way, so in the LGT has been part of Indian life for 3 decades, and they've almost kept upon so many things in India, and the ways in which they raised money and they did things, and most of them below the belt, and and whatever is mentioned were part of their activities in that point in time. So there was a lot of open media information which was available after they were vanquished in 2007, 2008 when the chapter came to an end. So many of those instances are built from events which have happened, though there is no direct link to the characters. And so also with the Bombay terror attack and the kind of events which have happened. So
you touch upon
the background is yes, based on real events.
Okay. Anjum, I wanted to ask you about the women in the book. They're strong women. There are women who beat the odds to stay ahead of their game, like Naiti and Alice. There are survivors like Angelina. There are users like Zainab. I think Isai Priya, if I've got that right.
Yes.
And how do you think these women develop vis-a-vis the men, in contrast to the men?
I think what is interesting is the fact that, as you point out very correctly, the women have a lot of agency in the book. You notice that they are taking events into their own hands, they're making decisions, and they are major actors. What I found interesting is that the men and the women seem to be fairly equally balanced in this respect, at least the way I saw it in the book. It isn't that you have male protagonists or antagonists who are spearheading the movement forward of the plot, and it's a very plot-heavy book. There's lots of twists and turns, there's lots of action, there's lots of different things happening, there's a lot of action in the book. So it's interesting that the action is kind of evenly divided between the women and the men. Now, very often there's a tendency for the women to play the softer characters, maybe the ones who have more conscience. Here we see that it's fairly evenly divided. If you're looking at black, white, good, bad in areas of grey, I think I don't know if Shibu would agree with me, but I didn't feel there was a bias towards one or the other in terms of who is capable of action, whether it's good action, bad action, negative, positive. So that's what I felt about it.
Okay. This is interesting because Shibu, I'm going to ask you something, taking off from what Anjum said. She said that men and women are fairly balanced, which is true.
Is Angela frozen or am I frozen?
No, I think her audio has got a problem. She may have to repeat the question.
Yeah, suddenly it's frozen. I thought maybe all of us had got frozen.
No, I can hear you.
No,
Angela is frozen.
Yeah, right. No, I was also intrigued, going back to Angela's earlier question. Angela, you back with us?
Yeah.
Okay, you had disappeared for some time. Right, carry on.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. I said that in relation to what Anjum said, I wanted to ask you, Shibu, that yes, men and women influence events equally. But you seem to have portrayed the men in your book, all of them, excepting perhaps Prakash and a few minor characters, as having a somewhat criminal bent of mind. Now, that's very interesting, I found. Why is that? Why have you portrayed men in such a negative light? Why do you see them as being unscrupulous, machinating users, lustful, irresponsible? Tell us about it.
So let me just clarify this to say that I have not been judgmental either with the women or with the men. So the way I write is that I develop the characters first, and the character sketching is what takes 80% of the time. and my research in the way I write. So to the extent possible, every character I try to bring in a background. So there is a past which justifies his present. So the story has been written with a certain background, and the characters have been selected and developed as it went along. So there has not been any bias from my writing, and characters are what they are, good or bad, whether it is man or woman. I mean, that is how the story has gone. So yes, it is this strong woman kind of novel, wherein what you are saying is that if finally it's about if you have control over the economics of what you're doing, there are many more things that you can do than being in the background. And that is true in today's India, which was not so maybe 30 years back.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Anjum, there is a strong streak of faith, Christianity that runs through the book. Despite that, especially this title, Faith and the Beloved, despite that, how do you relate to the fact that the genre is that of a thriller? How did you think that panned out?
Right. In fact, I'm so glad you asked me that question, Aindula, because one of the questions I had for Shibu is that you've called your novel Faith and the Beloved, and even your dedication talks about this link between love and faith. And I wanted to ask you that in what sense are you looking at faith? Yes, you have faith as religion, as Aindula pointed out. You've got the Syrian Christian beliefs and values there. You've got other, even Arun and Prem have a different kind of faith system that they come from. But do you mean faith as in organized religion, or do you mean faith as in the more, commonly used term of faith as a belief, as having faith in someone?
So
which was the kind of faith?
I mean, I'm glad that you asked me this question from both of you. That is at the heart of this book. That we say behavior of an individual is a reflection of his value system. And in any society, value system for individuals comes from the family, the religion, the education system, and society at large. 3-4 parameters which play up. And depending upon where he or she is from and how the environment is, these parameters vary on which influences more and which influences less. But irrespective of which influences more or less, finally, it's for the individual to believe in what he or she believes in. How much do you believe in yourself? How much do you believe in your capability to stand for your loved ones? So it is always that, that it is that faith in yourself and faith in what you believe in. It doesn't matter whether it is Bhagavad Gita, or it's the Bible, or it's the Quran, or it's anything else. So it is that faith that you have in yourself and what you believe in that will drive. And that's what it's all about. It is. I would say it is. It is not specific to age A or B. It will be something. I would say that it is something universally true where family binding is and family bonding is. This will always be.
Right.
And something interesting is that even in traditional families, like the Cheruzil family, I hope I'm saying that right, whenever they are in trouble and need rescuing, it is Nethi that they turn to. So there is a role reversal that's happened down the ages. It's the woman, it's the girl who is pulling them out of the woods and saving the fortunes of the family. Okay. Shibu, a very graphic picture of the underworld. Crime lords, gang wars, drug cartels, money laundering, police encounters. How much of research did you have to do for this? How did you get into the nitty-gritties of this? Take us through the process. Because
he
it's
has
really
a background in intelligence.
So, I will just tell you something. One of the things about just to give a little bit of background. My first book, which I wrote, took me 4 years and 3,600 man hours of writing. That the research and writing into the first book. The second book took me half that time, but it did take me about 1,800 hours of man hours, spread over about 2.5 years. So 80% of the time goes in research. To give an example again, I go back to the first example when I told you. When I take someone through and say that someone visited Sri Lanka in 2007, A war-torn Sri Lanka has to be war-torn Sri Lanka. So then you have to go back to books, articles, talk to people and research and come back. And that goes across the genre. That means whether it is you're talking about the underworld, whether you're talking about demonetization, whether you're talking about the terrorism, all these angles. To give you one more example, and you have to keep abreast of events which as they happen. So like there was a live incident of the Israelis coming and killing a terrorist in Dubai, which happened about 10 years back. Now, they thought they had done it very well, and Dubai took help of ISI of Pakistan, and in 1 week they put together the whole thing on a video and said these are the people who came, this is how they did it. So what was considered a masterstroke of an event which was done by them has been kind of, let's say, completely declassified and put it in the front by with the help of ISI. So this was discussed
blew up.
in the media at that point in time. So a lot of the things, events which you keep note of what happens, when an event happens, how it is covered, how the research takes place. So a lot of the things are like that. Or there is a reference to, in this particular case, we are talking about a state called Gambia, where I've traveled to. I've been to Gambia. And I've been to the city which is being referred to there. So a lot of the things which there is written based on the event that did happen in that place. That during the LTT times when Zimbabwe was blacklisted by the world, there was a kind of the black marketing of diamond which they were doing because they could not sell in the international market. So they were selling to all and sundry who could buy from there, and it was being abused by many people. So and LTT had used that provision. So a lot of the things is based on how much you have kept current with the events in the world which as they happen, and of course now linking it to a story which you're writing. So I guess I would say just research. That's a short answer.
Okay, Shibu. Anjum, I think you had a question for Shibu.
That's right. Yes. A couple of things that I found really interesting, and I wanted to ask you, Shibu. Angela's also already, commented on how vast the canvas is. I mean, you go from different kinds of environments. For example, she's talked about the Syrian Christian, then there's the Tamil situation in Sri Lanka, there's Bombay, the underworld. But also alongside with that, you also cover a whole lot of different segments of society and people from different kinds of backgrounds. You have the brothers who come from this, who are a sort of a lower caste background in Bengal, Bihar. You have the very prosperous Syrian Christian background. You have, it's almost like you create a very inclusive kind of world in your book, in which lots of different kinds of people are included in the world of this Indian world that you see. And I also noticed that at key points, communal violence plays a very, very strong propelling people into changing their lives, into having to make certain decisions and affecting them deeply. And it's almost like the book is punctuated with this, with these incidents of inter-religious and sort of inter-community clashes and violence. So is this something you thought about consciously, that this was a kind of approach you wanted to take, or did it just happen?
Or a commentary on with the way things are?
That second part of it is definitely yes. It is a slice of life as our society is today, or has been for the last couple of decades. See, let us not forget that the unfortunate as things are in the heartland, the problems of caste remain very strong even as on the 21st century, even as on date. You go to anywhere, the first thing they say, that this local saying is that pehle jaat pucho, fir baat pucho. That's how the system runs.
Yeah.
It is so much, so deeply ingrained. And if you look at you take a dispassionate look, way back when during the time of Emperor Ashoka and spread of Buddhism, the reason was that we had a system wherein that there were the few people who had access to the, let's say, their education, and Sanskrit decided what the rest of them should do. So he had come up with the concept of, let's say, for almost 14 centuries, India was a Buddhist country, which is not even talked about now. from about 4th century BC till Sri Shankaracharya came, another Malayali who created chaos and turned the country around.
Yes.
But for 14 centuries, we were a Buddhist country where only the kings and the rulers were the Hindu kings, which continued to be because they were the ruling class. The subjects were Buddhists. Then came the next emas of, let's say, the advent of Islam, and then you had for almost 6-7 centuries the whole lot of people who are, the Buddhists turning and becoming, let's say, the spread of Islam. Then came the British, and then, as usual, they made us fight. If you see, we all, one of the biggest success of Gandhiji was he knew that British are excellent at dividing people and dividing them wherever they go for their political gains. He held them together till 1942. It's only in 1942 when we had that the Subhash Chandra Bose and his international army, which was marching ahead from Burma, that Congress decided to drop the support for Britishers and started a Quit India movement. That was the place where things went wrong for our independence struggle, because the British able to split us. They called Jinnah and told them, okay, take Pakistan, and that's it. We lost the plot. So this has been, unfortunate as it may be, that has been part of our society's life for centuries together. This is played up and down. So in many ways, it has been a reflection of the slice of society. Many of the things which happened even during independence struggle, Janevu Andolan, and so many things about people trying to break out of the shackles of caste. So unless you bring in prosperity, you cannot. Even today, it's unfortunate, but after liberalization, the development has taken place only in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, 5 states. All the investment comes to 96% comes to these 5 states. The rest of the country is left out. So unless we are able to get the basic law and order and basic, the society functioning properly, you cannot move forward progressively. So that's unfortunate. Even just to give an example, I have traveled to Gwalior last year, and just before the COVID, and I was going there after 1978, almost 42 years. That place just stands like that.
Yeah.
So this is an issue. So as we grow forward, it's even today that's a big challenge, and that we need to have the whole nation, the law and order, the basic systems in place. Unless you bring in prosperity and education, we cannot get people out of the morass that they are in. So it's a slice of life more than anything else. It is not a bias towards anything, nor is it by design. But unfortunately, when you do character sketching, when you speak to people, I have spoken to umpteen number of people in the in the heartland. But this is what, even you talk to the hardcore military guys also, they say unfortunate, but caste rules even today.
Right.
So that's the thing.
Okay. Another thing that features strongly in the latter parts of your book is technology. It's the virtual world, hacking. That obviously is another area of interest, especially given the times when it is such a boon and yet such a problem. So tell us a bit about that.
So see, the thing
how
is,
crime is made much easier.
It is actually the problem with this. India as a society, we are what people say is an average Indian is a trusting man. He trusts his family, trusts his friends, trusts his politics, trusts the government. And this trust, you trust the bank, you trust the guy who gives you the service provider. So in all this trusting, what happens is that we had a system of checks and balances in our financial system, wherein you would go to bank. The opening a bank account was a privilege, which was meant only for the affluent. Rest of the people kept the money under lock and key somewhere. Or you bought gold and you looked after the gold yourself, or bought land or looked after it yourself. So as the prosperity has come in, and as we forced our country after demonetization to move into digitization, normally there's a saying that even for a large organization, a systemic change takes about 6 to 7 years. And for a nation of our size, a systemic change of like this, from a cash and carry to a digital system, I do not know how many more years it's going to take. It's definitely going to take more than maybe a couple of decades. So in this transition, it is very true that large number of people that in their way of learning things have been made fools of, exploited, have been party to being the receiving end of pranks. And equally important is that including corporates have been hacked into, corporate email addresses have been hacked into. So it is a reality which people need to take care. One of the reasons, but that's
I've lost you.
I said it was a deliberate decision to highlight this aspect of vulnerability of your money and your hard-earned fortunes to these scamsters who come and try to steal it from you. So which is the reality people can hack into. You can get you have a CCTV in your
I can't hear. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. I said if you have a CCTV in your house and if it is connected to the internet, somebody can hack in and come and see what you're doing in your house.
I can't hear.
Okay,
yeah, we can hear though, Angela.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
can all hear you and him. We can hear him
I
and you.
can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay. I hope I can hear you, but because I missed the last bit of that, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I can hear you very faintly, Anjum.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what I can do here.
I am able
Okay,
to hear
let
you.
me ask the question. Shibu, I can't hear you at all, but what I wanted to ask you is why did you choose this format of a thriller? Is that the genre that most attracts you? And who are some of the writers you're inspired by, who have influenced you?
The first part.
Could you hear me, Shibu?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm answering the question.
Loud and clear.
Okay. So the first book that I wrote was what I call a classic style, what I would call a Booker Prize kind of novel, the first one.
I can't hear
This was
Shibu.
by choice. Anjum, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear Oindrila. Maybe we should ask the host.
Oindrila, can you hear me now?
She is. I think her connection is unstable. Oindrila? She is not being able to hear.
Yeah,
Why
I
don't you
can
carry
hear
on talking?
Anjum faintly.
But we can hear you very clearly and we can hear Shibu also. How about Shushruta? Is it okay?
Okay.
I can hear all of you. So I think if is there any kind of a network issue, then I think if Anjali can just re-log in once more, clicking on the link.
Okay.
Why don't you carry on?
I will just answer that question. So the first book that was more in a classic style, what I would call, the Booker Prize style of writing, and by choice. So the second book, I wanted it to be different, and I chose to write a thriller genre. That is, of course, being a military man, thrillers come to us quite naturally, the thrilling part. It's not difficult at all. But the story writing and novel writing is the part where the research and challenge gets into. So this was by choice a thriller writing, but again with a certain streak of classical writing in it. So the writing is moving parts. Can you hear me now, Andrila?
Yeah, I can clearly.
Okay. So now I'll repeat the answer for you. I have just for you, just to give you a little bit of background. When I started writing seriously in 2009, I stopped reading fiction novels, not reading otherwise, reading fiction. And the first book was written in the traditional classic style of targeting a Booker Prize kind of writing. The second book I chose to write in a genre called, let's say, the thriller genre. And the next book that I write will also be in a different three books I wanted to experiment before I continue writing what I would choose to. So to that extent, this was by design, that I wanted to write a thriller, so I would do.
Right. Okay. So she also asked you which thrillers you like reading. Which writers do you like reading in this genre?
The writers I like reading is R.K. Narayan, though he's not from this genre. R.K. Narayan, I consider him the ultimate Indian writer. So without any batting an eyelid, R.K. Narayan is number one. In the thriller genre, you can Jeffrey Archer and then the series of a whole lot of people. going back in.
Okay. And have they influenced you?
In this writing, no, because one thing is, as I said, one of the decisions what I did was, after I started serious writing in 2009, I've not been reading fiction, so that I'm not influenced. So I write, and I do read a lot of research stuff and technical stuff, but no fiction. So the idea was that book should look very different, and I hope the first one did, and this one also. Till now, I have got a feedback from readers saying that yes, not many. There are some. Not everyone likes everything, but okay. But they all agree it's different.
Okay. Anjum, do you have a question for Shibu? Actually, I have a question for Anjum. I wanted to ask Anjum that, you deal with how your body and the sarkar. That's factual, all of it. And how did you relate to a thriller like this one? Now I can't hear Anjum.
I lost your voice now. Anjum, I lost your voice.
Myself, there's a lot of noise going on in my outside my window, so I was just muting myself temporarily. So I was saying that it's true that my own published work has been in theatre studies, and it's been largely research work, academic work. So in terms of research, I think Shibu, I have that. We have that in common. But in terms of personal interest, I love reading fiction. So for me, if I pick up a book out of choice, it's likely to be a work of fiction rather than a non-fiction book. So that's why it was perfectly lovely to be able to read a fast-paced thriller. And I found it particularly interesting to enter all these different worlds, which is one of the things I commented on. The kind of world of the Syrian Christians. This was probably the first time I was reading, there was some earlier when I read Arundhati Roy's book also, because that was set in the South and in a similar kind of. But the way the detail, the kind of very intricate details which you gave of daily life and their weekly rituals and things like that was quite interesting. And so it was very interesting for me to enter all these different worlds and to see the very sort of, as I said, plot-driven, fast-paced kind of book with lots of twists and turns and different things happening at different points. And the way you begin the book by plunging one straight into two acts of two criminal acts. One is, of course, Martha escaping on the tracks, and the other is Alice killing her. I shouldn't be giving the book away, I'm sorry. Let's just say that it's full of exciting things. But one of the things that I was finding also very intriguing, Shibu, and I was wanting to ask you this. I know that you've had a background in defense and you have seen a lot of, the hard aspects of life, I'm sure, in India. But I noticed that you have created a sense of extreme, flexibility in the petty criminal class. There is a sense that you can change identities, you can slip from one reality into another, you just sort of relocate and take another name, you sort of very easily slip into a different kind of life. You get married here, then you leave, you go somewhere else, you get married there.
Yeah, Prem and Alice keep doing that.
Yes.
Both Prem and Alice.
It seems that there's it's possible to do this. There's a kind of slipperiness, if you will, of identity. And so I was wondering that is this all pre-Aadhaar card, or now that we sort of much more pinned down in our different, where everything you need to produce the same set of documents to even get a simple thing like a job or open up or even get a mobile phone. Does this still work like that in India, or is this a more...
No. See, the thing is, the advent of the Aadhaar cards have in many ways, kind of restricted this kind of movement. But then, even today, let's say that the checking of identity for anybody traveling within India is just a photo identity card.
Yeah.
We need just show an Aadhaar card. Nobody verifies it and say whether it's actually genuine Aadhaar card or not. So long as it looks convincing enough. So same thing with a photo ID card, even if you show a driver's license or a PAN card.
Yeah.
So whether you're traveling by a flight, within domestic travel within India, it is
You
different.
mentioned that. In fact, you mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that in a flight.
Because I
they don't really check as long as your photograph is there.
No, because I have been traveling extensively in India for last 10 years now. All over India I've been. And many of the things which I have said are things which happen when I quoted Sikkim. I've been there for a couple of years. The place Jorthang, which I talked about, and the kind of background there, and the people there. So a lot of it is reality. But for checking out today, when you get on the Aadhaar card, yes, it is that much more difficult. Definitely. There is also the other side of the story that in the initial stages. So what again, as usual, the criminals are always one step ahead whenever you make a change. So this is just for the record, what many of them have done is, at the time when the Aadhaar was being introduced, many of them had fake Aadhaar card itself made, which means your biometrics is captured under 3 identities. So you change your photograph, biometrics remain the same. So that was possible at the initial stages. Now it's not possible. And till after that, now the Aadhaar card has started checking for what you call checking for duplications. To know if any one biometric has been duplicated with the same guy, somebody else. So and then they catch on initially when someone dies. And if his biometrics is captured, people are swapped it or something. And so in the initial stages, the criminals have made enough pockets in this whole thing to play around with till the system catches up with them.
Right.
So that thing goes on at any level in life. So where there are the cops and the criminals, and it's always a game of wits which goes on. That will continue.
Okay, Shibu, you've crossed borders a number of times, but the LTTE problem remains a focal point in this book. And I was really interested. I wanted to ask you, have you seen it, experienced it close up? Did it affect you in any way? Because it seems so real.
It is, of course. I mean, I have been to Sri Lanka in 82. I have been involved in that, as part of my previous life. I was involved in many ways which I would not like to discuss. Personally, I have not been affected. But I was not happy that the way that things turned out, that, we had a civil war going on in a neighborhood which should have been avoided. Should have been so much of blood, that so many people died. And a beautiful city of Jaffna brought to its knees and brought to zero. Yeah. And a set of people who have suffered for decades, and so many thousands. So the only difference is that, what people said is, that in any place that if LTT at some point had supported the people, but at some point they reached a point where they said that their end game was that they didn't want a solution. They wanted to continue fighting and live like that. So that is where they lost out. But the reason why I brought this out is that LTT has been the most vicious terrorist organization till date. They are the ones who thought about, formulated and introduced the concept of suicide bombers. Yeah. They could convince people that it is better to die. There is more meaning in death than in life. Than being a subjugated, let's say, as a citizen of a occupied territory. So if you are able to sell this kind of people and give it to them, again it's the same system. It's again what you believe in. So it's like they have been able to sell that idea because nobody has gone there with a gun to the head. They've voluntarily gone and blown themselves up. So that culture and what went wrong with that, and how much stupidity people can do, which has subsequently been picked up by ISIS and other organizations, and it's continuing in another level in many ways. But these people are the pioneers of this kind of extreme viciousness or the extreme nonsense in terms of targeting innocents, targeting anybody and everybody to meet their end. So yes, it was by choice that, not because I was affected, but I'd seen it actually. I felt, heartbroken many a times. There's so many people killed, which I thought was avoidable. And that's when I thought, today's generation,
it felt like that, as if you're really close to it and you're observing that.
Yes, true. I have followed LTT very closely. I mean, not many ways, because even many of my friends were casualties in their operations when they went into IPK of Sri Lanka. So many things, many of those things which are not part of that, those classified matters are not there in this. This is what has been talked and used as only what is information available in the open domain. I mean, that is
Absolutely.
but yes, what you said is true.
Yeah. Shibu, at the end, of course, there's this ISI LTT nexus also that you strongly talked about. But I felt that at the end, a few of the strings, loose ends, were not tied together. For example, what happens? Why were the diamonds held on to for so long? What happens finally? Where does the LTT ISI connection end up? You sort of jump straight from where Alice comes back, Nethi comes alive, and then they're together and planning the future.
No, this is okay. One of the challenges after writing the book, some of the readers have told me is that the plot of the book is in the first chapter. I mean, every word, every sentence has got meaning, which gets comes out later in the book. So now this is a classic situation wherein you have said there was an organization which set up and made an arrangement to say that okay, we need this slush fund and this 2 diamonds is our source. At some point, the organization is killed, and there is a sleeper cell who's holding it now, who does not know that his master doesn't exist anymore. So now somebody else has tried to take control, and which is seen by this guy Prem, who steps in, who tries to take control, and then finally the LTT doesn't exist anymore, and that diamond belongs to whoever gets it. So whilst what this happens is that in this particular case, the guy who's guarding it, he's not even aware that that the LTT is gone, or he is being directed by somebody who has nothing to do with what is the original cause. He still thinks that he's doing all this for his parents who was killed or burnt alive. Well, the cause is over. So this is again. So for people who read the plot carefully, they'll at some point understand this. To say that that the control has been lost by the master has gone out, LTT is dead in 2008, but he's still holding on to that because that is the charter given to him, that hold on to it for dear life, and he's doing it. That's again come back to the first part. How much do you believe in what you're doing? Where do you end?
Yeah, true. Anjum, anything else you want to ask Shibu? Can't hear you. You're muted.
I was saying maybe we can ask him what his plans are for his next book.
I was going to. What are his future plans? So Shibu, what are your future plans? Is it going to be another thriller? Are you actually working on something?
No, at any given time there are 3-4 novels churning in my mind. So which one to take?
Oh, right. So Shibu, I want to ask you one question. What is your process of writing? Are you a disciplined writer who sits down for a number of hours every day and writes? Or do you wait for the inspiration to come before sitting down to write?
I have not had problem of inspiration till date, so that is comes to me naturally. That's not an issue. Yes, what I do is what I do is actually I keep doing continuous character sketching, irrespective of when I'm going to start writing a novel. So just to give an idea, for this novel I've used about 7 or 8 characters. I had about 200 character sketches which I had done. So that is a phenomenal process which goes on an array of characters that you have, and from there you choose to know, because then most of them are based on research on incidents, people, some people whom you have met, and you say it pans out, etc. And the writing is always, I pick up, for example, I pick up a hero or a heroine and then picture the characters, and then sometimes you have to change whom you have selected. And the plot is developed after the characters are decided. So it is the way I write. And yes, every day, once you start writing, you have to write every day. 3-4 hours dedicated. So the character sketching goes on as a continuous process. And at some point you sit down, and when you say what you want to write, you start.
Okay, and Shibu, that's been absolutely wonderful. And I have to say, I'll hold up the book again. That's the book. It's fast-paced, it's racy, it's gripping. So those of you who haven't read it, please do. Faith and the Beloved by Kochery C Shibu. And it's been a real pleasure doing this session with you. We're almost out of time. So I'm going to ask Mona and Shushruto to take over and end this session. Thank you so much, Anjum, Shibu. And Mona and Shush for asking us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Anju.
Thank
Over
you,
to you, Mona.
Angela. Thank you,
My pleasure.
Angela and Anjum, for this riveting discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm sure the viewers did that as well. And thank you very much for your time. And Shibu, all the best to your book, Fate and the Beloved. I hope it reaches many, many readers. And all the best for your future endeavors. We had a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Angela. Thank you, Anju. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you all. Bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this episode, and if you do, then do follow our podcast, Reading the Author, available on all the leading podcast platforms. And don't forget to buy the book Faith and the Beloved. Thank you.